Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Many claims are being made about AI and what it can do. To help separate fact from fiction and to discuss the state of AI and its future direction, I am glad to be joined today by three of the expertise in machine learning and artificial intelligence. Prof. Seyedali, Mirjalili is the director of the Center for Artificial Intelligence Research and Optimization at Torrens University, Australia. He is internationally recognized for his advances in swarm intelligence and optimization. Next to Dr. Ali, Dr. Al-Ghamdi. Dr. Abdullah Al-Ghamdi is a professor specialized in software and system engineering, and he's a faculty in computing college in King Abdulaziz University. And finally, we have Dr. Waleed Alasmary. Dr. Waleed, he is a professor in AI at Al-Qura University. Dr. Alasmary is an expert in emerging technologies research and innovation that accelerate transformation of Saudi Arabia to the digital nation. Dr. Waleed, Dr. Abdullah, Dr. Ali, thanks for joining me today. I'm your host, Dr. Naufal Ghanmi. First of all, let's ask, how would you define AI? To you, Dr. Ali.
Thanks, Dr. Naufal, for the introduction. And let me just quickly thank for your invitation. It's my pleasure to be part of this panel. And hopefully we're going to have a lot of, fantastic questions and answers. So to be able to define AI, I would like to quickly, look at it from different perspectives. Because it hasn't been a long time that the term AI has become very popular and everybody talks about it. From public view, AI is all about robotics, or people think the killer robots is going to take over our lives, and we're going to lose our jobs to AI, and that's exactly what media also picture it in movies, in videos, and basically in a lot of everywhere in social media. From business perspective, AI, what AI means to a lot of businesses and organization is data analytics, right? Because they have data, they want to make a decision, and they leverage on AI. But for us, computer scientists, expert in AI, it has a special meaning. Okay, and before I talk about artificial intelligence, I would like everyone to think about a natural intelligence. What do we call an intelligence, a natural intelligence? Of course, a natural behavior, right, that comes from a natural creature, a plant, or any organism overall. It can be as small as in a bacteria or as big as an elephant or dinosaur, right? So what about now artificial intelligence? Well, it's easy. AI is a mimicked or simulated intelligence in a machine. That means for the very first time in the history, we are seeing a machine, something that is not natural anymore, it's man-made, show natural behavior. It recognizes images. We listened to Prof. Niraj, speech before this session. Image processing, deep learning, CNN are all great example of artificial intelligence, because these are made by us, and this is the machine who shows that sort of intelligence behavior. That's all from me, Dr. Naufal.
Thank you. Dr. Waleed, what do you think?
Yes, thank you very much for having me today. When I look at AI, I can define it from two different aspects. One is theoretical and one is practical. If we look at AI from a theoretical aspect, we can define an AI as a function. That's function that has input and an output, but it doesn't have the mathematical representation of the traditional math. It is actually, as Professor Seyedali said, it is designed based on the simulation or emulation of the human behavior. It's basically a mathematical function that is very complicated or complex actually, but it's inspired or mimics the human brain or certain behavior, or actually like any other animal that has a certain complicated function. If we look at AI, it has been transformed since it started in the late 50s. There was a traditional AI, such as symbolic AI. Then there was the huge breakthrough at the early 60s, which was the perceptron network by Marvin Minsky. And after that, there was different like waves of heuristics, optimization, and in the 90s or early 2000, there was the support vector machine. After that, there was the deep learning breakthrough in 2000, around 2010. All these are algorithmic machine learning that are based on practical data. Without the data, they cannot work or being trained, especially in the supervised fashion. If we look at this, we need to understand what an AI does. In the practical sense, it does the same function as a human being. It has the cognition, the perception, interpretation, and understanding. So an AI actually behaves like a human. It takes certain data and decides after that. It makes decision. It's a decision-making function based on the input to that data. That's basically what I can look at an AI from theoretical and practical aspects.
Great, thank you. Well, AI officially began in 1956. What has changed in the past decade that makes us to see revolutionary advances in our life related to AI? What do you think, Professor Ali?
That's a great question, and we get asked a lot often the same question, and I would like to steal some of the answers that Prof. Waleed gave us just now about the history, right? So we've had, two winters in the history of AI, one around 1975, one around 1990s. Just before everybody was excited, everybody was, super, pumped for the AI that it's going to change the lives. It suddenly, dropped down and nobody talked about it. But now, since 2015, just recently, we've seen an exponential growth in AI. And to me, there are so many reasons that contributed to this, to be honest. But if I want to maybe pick a few, maybe 3 or 4 reasons, I would say one of the main drivers of this popularity is data. As Prof. Waleed just now mentioned, data is like a fuel for AI popularity. And what businesses and organizations now see benefit is the data-driven decision-making, because it's beyond, our capability as humans to analyze a tremendous amount of data that, we produce as humans. Number 2, I would say affordable digital devices. In 1995, compared now to 2020, 2021, now everybody has a small machine that does everything, right? A mobile, a personal computer, a tablet. So all these machines allow, companies to collect data, to better analyze it. And of course, because of the data, we needed models. And that leads me to the next point, which was machine learning. In addition to the advances and popularity and growth in data and machine and hardware, now we've seen, an incredible progress in the machine learning space also. Okay? And we are leaning towards, towards learning from experience rather than, a set of rules on how to do something. So now that's the machine for the first time. We've seen that machine, okay, look at the data, okay, and learn from it and answer or solve problems that, the machine hasn't seen so far. So those are the few reasons, and I think main drivers of these popularity. And we are still at the growth. Nobody knows whether it's going to, drop down. We will see another winter, or we are going to see the exponential growth, and nobody can stop, that growth. It will be interesting to find out soon what will happen in the future.
Yes, thank you. And actually, we also want to know today with you and other panelists about different sectors of our life that AI has an impact to. And health is one of the important sectors. Dr. Al-Ghamdi, how AI can help the health sectors in order to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic?
I'm sorry for being late. Of course, if we go back probably 40 years or so, rule-based systems, at the start of AI and so on. I remember the Stanford University, they have a system called Mycene. And this system, you enter the disease symptoms, and they will give you, some suggestion for medication and so on. And then, things, get advanced in hardware and softwares and apps and so on. Nowadays, using AI really helps and assists, the countries, assist the health organizations. It will help in virus testing abilities, sensing devices, now vaccinations, and also testing and antibiotic medicine and so on. I think now is the time. And if we look at the research now, especially if we look at Saudi Arabia, we are #1 now in the Arab countries and 14th, I think, in the worldwide for COVID-19 research and so on. It is an added value for the organization itself and for the disease and for the health organizations. Especially now when we are looking, now most of the countries are locked down and so on. And now with the new passport, the health passport and immunizations passport. So things are getting better. If we look at Saudi Arabia, they have like 19 apps and platforms that serve the public health functions, healthcare services, and so on. And one of it is Tawakkalna, Tabaud, and so on. So I think the technology, and if we are talking about specifically about AI, I think, as I said before, it's an added value for the health organizations and for assisting countries in coping with this pandemic.
Yes, indeed. And that is, inshallah, on the fourth day, we have a day for AI in health. And there are some lectures about COVID, implying AI in COVID to tackle COVID-19. Moving to another important sector, which is the industry. Dr. Alasmary, how do you see Saudi Arabia is doing in terms of AI in industry?
That's a very good question. So first of all, as a country who is trying to lead in the AI industry, we need specialized people and multiple expertise in the different areas or spectrum of AI specialty. We need to have people, laborers, and professionals in the intelligent systems domain, autonomous systems domain, digital infrastructure domain, that are all related to the AI industry. And there are certainly interdisciplinary areas, as you said, COVID-19 and medical and health, etc. Saudi Arabia is putting serious steps right now, very serious steps towards being the leader in the Arabic world and Middle East, and one of the top leaders in the AI industry and research. If I would like to begin, there was, as a government entities, there is SADAYA, Saudi Data and Artificial Intelligence authority, which is responsible for defining the national strategies and mandates and rules, regulations for the AI industry within the country. The authority has three main entities or bodies, sub-bodies under SEDAIA that are linked and work in synergy. First of all, as a research and development center, the National Center for Artificial Intelligence, I would say the name also in Arabic, المركز الوطني للذكاء الاصطناعي. The other entity is the National Data Management Office, مكتب إدارة البيانات الوطنية. The third one is the National Information Center, مركز المعلومات الوطني. These three bodies has the different functionalities of mandates, rules, regulations, and research strategies. We also have the digital infrastructure for AI, which is actually regulated and led by the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology and the Communication and Information Technology Commission. They are both putting policies and regulation for enabling emerging technologies such as cloud computing, Internet of Things, which are actually the source of data that makes AI useful. Also, this is from government perspective. If we look at the industry-wise, the government initiated multiple mega projects that will be based on the industry in Saudi Arabia. Those are within the Vision 2030, and they will be definitely based on AI. The first one, for example, the big NEOM project. The second one is the Line, the futuristic city in Saudi Arabia, the first model of a really smart city. Those will be the role models for smart city in Saudi Arabia and for the whole world. And they will have multiple opportunities and large number of AI jobs in the different spectrums, from technicians to leaders, etc. Academically, if we look at the institutions, several universities, they started programs in AI or data science or AI related. As I was a vice dean for graduate studies in Al-Qura University, I saw that the computer science during my time, they launched the Master of AI. It's a program that has two tracks. One is applied and the other one is thesis-based. If we look at the applied one, it's actually prepares people, professionals for the industry market. The thesis one actually focus on increasing the talent pool, the people who will train the others to become AI professionals. Finally, as we know that the government, the Saudi government and the kingdom is becoming actually one of the leaders in the AI strategies. And this was evident by the recently finished G20 Global AI Summit. So I think overall we are doing so good in terms of industry in Saudi Arabia.
Thanks, Doctor. This is very informative. Prof. Ali, having you today, we can't having you without asking you about optimization, as you are well-known in that field. So from your experience, what is a sworn intelligent algorithm and how it relates to problem solving in AI?
Thank you so much, and I'm glad that you asked this question, because that's my area of study in AI, and that's what I'm very passionate, and I spend a couple of decades of my life in this space. And as we discussed earlier when we were talking about definition of AI, we ended up deciding that okay, an intelligent may come from a small bacteria, or from a creature as big as an elephant. Okay, so the source of inspiration is somehow related to nature. Okay, and for a creature or for natural organisms to show intelligent behavior, they don't have to have big brains. Okay, and often they don't even need to have any leader. If you think about an ant colony, right? There is no centralized control unit. Yes, there's a queen, but the responsibility is just to lay eggs. Okay, but somehow through collective behavior and local interaction, they, solve some of the most challenging problems that they face. So each individual ant, for example, or bee or termite, is not able to survive by its own, but collectively they show some sort of intelligence, which we call swarm intelligence. Okay, and that's amazing, because usually we expect billions of neurons working together to make things happen, but now we are talking about very small set of neurons, but collectively they work together. So that's what we do, and again, this leads to really a very interesting problem algorithms that even help us to solve our problems. For example, if you want to find a logistic problem, if you want to find even in COVID-19, after all the disruption in the supply chain and globally, to find alternative routes between countries, the supply chain of vaccine is a very complicated optimization problem to meet certain constraints, to maximize or minimize a wide number of objectives. So in swarm intelligence, we inspire from nature. We say, okay, this is how bees, this is how termite colonies solve problems. Okay, let's use the same principles and develop an algorithm in a machine, to solve a similar problem. So basically, we build artificial, for example, ants or swarms in a computer. We get them to solve our problems. And logistic COVID-19, was a very relevant example, I think, given the situation that we are all facing. And yeah, so it's a very exciting field of study, and would love to encourage as many audience as I can to to do a bit of research and help us, and join us in this exciting field of study called swarm intelligence and evolutionary algorithm.
Yes, thank you, Prof. Ali. And I encourage all the audience, if you have any questions, please write them. We can ask Prof. Ali at the end if you're interested. Back to you, Prof. Abdullah. We know that AI has transformed our technology and what we call digital transformation nowadays. But how about AI transforming the workplaces and the people? How do you think people should prepare for their career in the AI age? Prof. Abdullah, I think you are muted.
Of course, many people think that technology will replace them. Actually, it's not that 100% true. But some of the, for example, some of the jobs or some of the works that can be replaced, probably instead of having some X-ray person, to transfer the X-ray going back and forth, probably with AI you can get whatever that you want. Also, instead of having too many physicians or too many nurses and doing too many tasks or that, it could be, of course, decrease the need of that. But, physicians, nurses, other jobs, other workers, and so on, it cannot be replaced for that. Sometimes, when we talk to regular people or some, they say, okay, you replace me, or no, AI there, it's a tool that will help us and assist us in doing our work. As Dr. Seyedali and Dr. Waleed, they talk about the infrastructure and they talk about how systems that can help us and how algorithm and how can we re-algorithms and so on. At the end of the day, we need to do a task, and AI will help in doing that.
Yes, Prof. Abdullah. So regarding the people and the worker, what do you think they need to prepare for this AI age, to educate and to be trained?
Yes, it's very important. It's not on the organizations. Either this organization is a business, or it's a health organization, or a governmental organization. They need to prepare their workers. They need to train them. And I'm sure with the technology, with AI, for sure, the advantages of using AI or any tools or any applications will give us the edge, and we maximize the accuracy of our work. But they have to be trained. They shouldn't think AI is our enemy, or something will take our jobs.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. Abdullah. That was very interesting. Also to Dr. Waleed, Dr. Abdullah mentioned a very important thing, which is everybody a fear of it, which is job displacement. Another also factor that also people talked about, some of the negativity, is the weakening of interpersonal relationships. Is when the human overrely on computers that much. So do you think that this is valid in related to AI?
So if I understand your question correctly, what you're saying is that we will rely on AI more than people.
Yes.
Okay, so this is actually sensitive and a bit critical. So despite the advancement of AI work, AI actually has its own bias or unfairness, let's say. It has a fairness issue. And this is very crucial that when we actually would like to deal with AI. But when we look at it, let's look at it from this perspective. You asked us at the beginning that how we define AI. AI is actually inspired by the human behavior, the human thinking, the neural networks in the brain. If we look at the certain machine learning algorithms, especially nonlinear ones. So if we look at humans actually has their own biases and fairness issues. So if you actually work with a human being, then there are certain, let's say, social issues in making decisions, in the decision-making process. And this will happen as well with AI. If we look at, there are many possibilities or several possibilities. A human dealing with an AI, a human dealing with a human, that's the basic scenario, human dealing with AI, and AI is dealing with AI. It's a bit crucial when we actually talk about perception, interpretation, or if we put it under the decision-making umbrella. Let's assume certain scenarios to understand the context. What if you would like to do a medical operation? Would you rely on the decision of an AI, or would you like actually, would you be confident, more confident if you take a human being advice? That's a life-threatening decision. So we have to be a bit careful when we deal with an AI, especially like when we have a powerful AI and we cannot decode its decisions, why it decides like why it gave you such a decision. Another thing is the criminal investigation, law, education. What if we have an AI that teaches our kids? Do we know the values that it puts in our children? Perhaps also social aspects, like marriage decision. Would you actually prefer that an AI decides your life partner for you? I don't think so. So actually the area between human and AI is actually still in the gray area. But I think we are not 100% relying on AI at the moment.
Yes, that was really enlightening. Thank you, Doctor. Also, Prof. Ali, in the same regards, what do you think also are the main issues surrounding AI today?
Well, to a lot of people, particularly AI expert, which have a lot on the call and probably in the audience, future of AI, and AI is exciting and intimidating at the same time, right? Why exciting? Because I believe that with AI, we can tackle global challenges much easier and much faster. Things like hunger, global warming, welfare, and so on. And I can't wait for the moment that we'll see we collectively as as humankind solve hunger. So nobody sleeps hungry in a night. So so that's the exciting part of it. But the intimidating part of it is mainly because of its power and that might go out of the control. If you think about it, if you think about the most destructive weapon of all time is a nuclear weapon, right? So AI can be far more devastating than nuclear weapon. Okay, and if we as humankind start to weaponize it, it has the potential to wipe all of us out of from this planet. Okay, so that's to me so we need to to be able to prevent, these are the issues, and to be able to tackle them, to be able to prevent them and minimize its threat, we need regulation. We really need we do need regulation around it. So there are so many issues, of course, along the way. One of them was mentioned earlier in the first plenary talk by Professor Rose, like black box, nature of AI. That black box nature may lead to, a lot of questions that we can't answer. So there's so many issues, but from my point of view, that's probably the most intimidating issues that we face, and with the concern that we have when it comes to AI.
Thank you so much. I don't know if we will go now for the audience discussion. If there are any questions, I can't see here a question, and any one of you are free to answer. So the first question: do you think AGI can be achieved using current AI algorithms? I don't know what is AGI. If you can explain.
It's probably narrow. It's the generic AI, isn't it? Because we had an earlier talk. Yes. It was narrow AI and general AI. Is Prof. Abdullah and Prof. Waleed, allow me just very briefly. Look, sure. We are well on the right track of reaching that point. And I always give this analogy to my students and my team. What we are building is like a dam with billions liters of water behind it. Okay, any cracks should be taken care of immediately in the dam, because if the dam gets destroyed, nobody can stop it. So I would say we're still far from there, but we are well in the direction. As Prof. Waleed mentioned earlier, machine learning, we've got a tremendous achievement in machine learning, simulating neuron from our brain. We are well, towards that, but who knows? What nobody knows, their prediction around 2030, 35 or 40, we'll get there. But to reach that singularity level, it's called singularity level, which refers to the point that the technology is so advanced in the AI, let's say, in this context, that it goes out of the hand. Okay, which means nobody can stop it. And that my analogy of a dam and a crack on it is a very relevant example. We have to make sure that we don't get there, because once we get there, nobody can, rebuild the dam. That's all from me.
Thank you. Another question from Waleed. Connections, evolutionaries, symbolists, and Bayesians, which approach have a better hand to explain aspects of human behavior and cognition? Okay.
If Professor Abdullah allow me.
Go ahead.
I would take this question. So my answer is like this. As a learner, I would say every student as a learner has to master the basics first, master them. The question shows me something actually, that I will give an example to illustrate that. So machine learning is about multiple, let's say, models. One thing is the nature of the input, and the other thing is the representation. The second thing, and the third thing is the model itself, the machine learning model. So if we understand these three things, we can decide which machine learning algorithm we should use. An example of how we learn is like this. I would like to learn deep learning. How should I go toward that? If I were in your shoes, I would go to the basic neural network, understand that it's an input, an output, and a nonlinear function, master the basics of that, activation functions, backpropagation, the representation, and actually implement it by myself without using any library. Even if you implement the simplest form, which is a Hopefield network, then you can know exactly when the neural network works and not work, and when it should be applied. After that, we should go further to different neural network architecture, and then we go to different multiple layers deep learning. So every problem has its own nature of data, its own nature of input and output, and we have to understand that which algorithm was designed to tackle which problem. So that's my view on the question. We cannot just decide of one algorithm that is the best.
Yes, sure. And I might point this next question to Prof. Abdullah. Can over-reliance on AI compromise human cognitive capability? I think this is also one of the fears that people has toward AI. Yes.
If I go back to Prof. Seyedali and Dr. Waleed and their talk, and we can take from what they say to answer this question. Of course, you know, sometimes we have reliance on technology, on AI, and so on. But always, you know, we have to be sure everything is in place. We cannot be sure. Sometimes you have a problem. If we talk about the Boeing 737 and their problems with their softwares and so on. But usually software can be trusted, but we always have to train it. We always have to analyze it. We have to test it and so on. Of course, now even in medicine, they use it, you know. So operations, you can see it in the operation room and so on. So it depends where you use it. It depends how the technology is and so on.
Yes, thank you so much. For you, Prof. Ali, there is a question, I think, if you can answer it from machine learning perspective. The question is, if we don't know how the brain actually works, we can't still achieve general artificial intelligence?
That's a challenging question, I think. It's a very challenging question. Well, look, I'll look at it from a point of view of, you know, inspiring from nature again. For us, what we can perceive from nature is the nature itself, right? We can't perceive more than that. So to me, the best example why people tend to, you know, gravitate towards artificial neuron, biological neuron, I should say, not artificial, in human brain, because we are the most intelligent, you know, creature on this planet, and maybe even in our solar system. Who knows beyond? But with the current knowledge, we are the most intelligent, right? And of course, if someone asks, okay, what will be the best, you know, example? Okay, that will be us, right? And that's why people tend to gravitate towards, you know, biological neuron, because they are simple, but with billions of them working together, they solve the most challenging problems that we face. So I would say this is hand to hand, really. I mean, as the field of biology progress, as we have a better and better understanding of human brain and the biological neuron, we will be able to design a more accurate and closer artificial neuron. Okay. And at some point, I would say my prediction is that these two overlap, and that's the project that Elon Musk, Neuralink, announced a few months ago, right? This will start to hand to hand, which means we have at some point artificial neuron and biological neuron work together instead of competing, right? Prof. Ross mentioned this morning, we need, AI not to replace humans, but also work together, right, to complement, right? So I would say at some point they will overlap. How close they come and how accurate they work together, I believe those are the challenges that we might need to tackle in the next few years to come.
Yes, and also, Prof. Ali, we can also maybe look at it from the other direction, where we can learn life science and how brain work using the artificial intelligence as a tool.
Yeah, and that's where the synthetic AI comes into play, which means and that happens often in machine learning. Prof. Niraj showed us a lot of images of cats and dogs and show, okay, this is how we train CNN, right, or convolutional neural network. But at some point, when we train an AI and it becomes, mature enough, it will generate, the synthetic data, which means it will create a face that doesn't exist, and it will feed it to the algorithm. It's like a virtuous cycle, So it's like a slow snowball effect. At some point, you push it, you make the ball bigger and bigger, but then after a certain point, that's where the ball is rolls down and collect as many snow as possible on the way and get bigger and bigger. So that virtuous cycle, I think, is the key thing, which I think what we've been discussing in this question.
Yes, thank you so much. Dr. Waleed, what happens when our computer gets smarter than us as a future of AI?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. We can look at it from two different aspects, from the current capabilities of AI and from the futuristic capabilities. If we look at it from the current capabilities of AI, we are not there at, AI can do actually certain tasks like detection, recognition, interpretation, translation, but it's all based on collective data. So it's basically, it's like having multiple people working on the same task. So it's actually making a super intelligence. Instead of having one person who knows certain subset of the knowledge, we have the knowledge of multiple people in one machine. And as more advanced in the future the AI goes, we can predict that it will definitely become sharper and sharper than human. The question is, in the futuristic AI, is it going to do all the tasks that a human being does? This question is vague, and we don't know the answer yet. If it does, actually, then it matches the human capability, but nobody can answer this at the moment. But if we look at the functions that we have now, it is shown by empirical studies that for detection of images, AI is much better than human. So it's superior than human. So if we give a human being, let's say 1,000 images, and we ask him to detect all the cats, and there are very small cats in those images, and we give him maybe 10 seconds for each one, the human being will fail dramatically against the AI. But
Yes,
if we say that an AI should think like a human, this is something different. It cannot think exactly in every task, only specific tasks, like translation from English to Arabic, from English to Urdu or Germany. Then it can perform somehow comparable to human.
Yeah, Prof. Abdullah, can you add anything about the future? How do you see the future of AI?
I totally agree with Dr. Waleed. I think we will arrive at a point that, yes, maybe technology can do things much better than human being. Also, things sometimes overlapping. Is it technology or human? So it depends on the task that it will be there.
Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing, all of you, your insights. And for here, I will stop because everyone now is looking for attending the workshops. So I hope all of you a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Anouf. Thank you,
Thanks,
Dr.
everyone.
Waleed, Prof. Seyedali. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Prof. Abdullah, Prof. Waleed. It was a lovely discussion and great talk. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.